Today, we are taking a whirlwind look at the history of Christianity, going from its foundations all the way up to where we are in our story, kind of the very beginning of the Crusades, Middle Ages. So basically, gonna cover about 1,200 years of Christianity in a flash. So buckle in your seatbelts and get ready for a ride because today we are going fast. All right, founding of Christianity. Christianity itself is a monotheistic religion. That means that they believe in one God, and they base their teachings, base their religion off of the life and the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth, also known today as Jesus Christ, was an individual who lived in the first century in and around what is today Israel, Palestine, and is seen as kind of a model by many people, by Christians and beyond Christians as well, of a very virtuous life, that he led a very good, very pure life. And most Christians today, and many Christians then, believed that not only was he this virtuous guy who led the life that we should all be leading, beyond that, they believed that he is the Son of God, that he is God's child on earth, but that he's got this interesting mix where he is also fully divine. He is God and fully human. He is the Son of God. And they believe that in this role, Jesus Christ is the savior of humanity, that he died to absolve humans of their sins, and that through Jesus Christ, one may enter heaven. In that way, he is the savior, in that you go to heaven rather than hell. So that is Jesus of Nazareth. Now, after Jesus of Nazareth dies, he is crucified. This is a brutal form of execution done by the Romans at the time. Jesus Christ is crucified. Many of his followers, who we call the apostles, work to spread the story of Jesus Christ and his life and his model for how we should live our lives. Two of the most well-known and most important are St. Peter and St. Paul. St. Peter, this fellow right here, is going to wind up traveling all the way to Rome from where Jesus was living in the Middle East and Israel, modern Israel. And he's going to travel to Rome, to the very heart of the Roman Empire, to try to spread Christianity there. St. Paul is going to stay a little closer to home. He's going to hang out in the Middle East, Syria, Damascus, around there, spreading the word of Christ a little closer to home. These Christians and others spread out across the empire to try to spread his word, and they do so rather effectively, because we see that this Roman Empire led by the pagans, by these people who believed in multiple gods, who opposed Christianity, right? They don't want to see the spread of this early on because it conflicts with their religious principles, but it becomes popular amongst the people because of the work of the apostles and those who follow them. So much so that by 380 AD, the Roman Empire itself adopts Christianity as its official religion. We'd had a couple of emperors by that point that had dabbled in Christianity themselves, most famously Constantine, who issued the Edict of Toleration, or I can't remember the actual name of it. Apologize for that. But he's going to be accepting of Christians starting in the early 300s. And by 380, Christianity is the official religion of the empire. Now, this is going to be short-lived for those Western Romans, because the Western Roman Empire is going to collapse and fall within 100 years. Some people link the collapse and fall of the Roman Empire to the spread of Christianity. I'm not sure that there's a very strong link there, but certainly some evidence can be used to support that. Edward Gibbon, a very famous historian, laid a lot of it on Christianity. I think probably a little too much, but this Western Roman Empire is going to fall, but that does not mean that Christianity itself evaporates. Christianity had become the religion of the people. The people of the Western Roman Empire were Christians, and whoever their ruler was going to have Christian people. So, with that in mind, the Pope, who remains in Rome, and remember the Pope is the leader of the Christian church, at least the Western Christian church, is a very important political leader because of his religious belief. People will follow the Christian leader. People will listen to what the Pope has to say. So any medieval leader in the West is going to have to pay attention to the Pope and pay attention to Christianity. This is how we see the fact that the German people who were pagan, who march in and defeat the Roman Empire and create their own kingdoms, they become Christian. Almost all of them adopt Christianity within the first few generations of their leading kingdoms within these former Roman territories. They do this because it is a religion of their subjects. If they hope to lead, they have to follow their people. Their people want a Christian leader. So they make a political decision to adopt Christianity. But another couple generations pass, and these medieval leaders become fully Christianized. They are true believers, and they are going to work to spread Christianity. Now, they do this for multiple reasons. They do this because, one, they're good Christians, some of them, and two, it's a means of expanding their own power, because if they can use Christianity as the reason for expansion, well, they get a lot of other benefits out of that as well. They can expand their own power by using Christianity as a reason for doing so. So we find this new alliance starting to form. Popes and their Christian allies in the secular leadership of Europe. Most notably, and one that we have discussed quite a bit, is this relationship between the popes and Charlemagne. Charlemagne being that good Christian leader with a powerful empire, working with the popes to spread Christianity, that hand-in-hand relationship. Now, later on, we're going to see that the popes actually start to exert a little bit more control. And that power balance between the popes and Charlemagne was kind of the stronger of that relationship and was able to kind of manipulate and coerce the popes to some degree to help him and his political objectives. But that balance is going to shift with the breakup of Charlemagne's empire, the no longer having a strong, unified empire in Europe. The popes still maintain their power, their influence. The popes and their bishops become this kind of superpower within Europe. Now, they don't have a massive army of their own. They are not a large landed nation. They can't raise up independent wealth within their own lands, but as the leaders of all Christians, and as Europe is all Christian at this time, or virtually all Christian at this time, the popes could and did influence all of these leaders. Most notably, they could threaten kings and emperors with excommunication if they did not follow their wishes. Excommunication would mean that they have kicked a king or an emperor out of the religion. Such and such king should not be recognized as a Christian, and as they are not Christian, they are not legitimate. And the counts and the dukes, and the princes, and other people in Europe look at the illegitimate leader of a kingdom and they say, hey, I've always wanted a little bit of that land, or hey, I've always wanted a little bit more of these privileges, or hey, I can take advantage of this because the Pope has said that they are excommunicated, they are not Christian, we do not need to treat them as we would fellow Christians. We have an advantage here. And it was a really tough position for these medieval leaders to be in if they were excommunicated. Excommunication really messed with their power. They don't want to be excommunicated. And so they wind up following the wishes of the popes. And with kings and emperors were threatened with excommunication and excommunicated as well. In the West, we mostly have kings, but in Germany, we still had an emperor, the Holy Roman Empire. We haven't talked too much about them, but they're out there. With kings and emperors seeking to please these bishops and popes, they are granting land to these churches and letting the churches have all the income of that land. And with the income from that land, they can build bigger and better cathedrals. We start to see some of these very large, expensive, beautiful cathedrals being built throughout Europe. These were massive buildings at the time. They're big buildings today. They were huge back then. They would make royal palaces look like the homes of cotters. These are gorgeous, built extremely well. Some have survived 1,000 years. The church is very influential, very powerful, very wealthy within all these kingdoms, and very powerful outside of these kingdoms. We start to see this during the Crusades. Now, we have not talked much about the Crusades yet, but we're getting into that with our next subunit. So it is coming up, but a little look ahead here. During the Crusades, popes are going to direct Christian leaders of the war. Now, popes are not actually going to raise an army themselves and lead an army in the field and go charging off to defeat the enemy. No. Popes are going to be in Rome, creating the spiritual and political guidance for these crusades. The first of which is called by Pope Urban II, in an effort to conquer or reconquer lands which had turned to the Islamic Empire, that had become Muslim lands. Lands that had once been Christian in Anatolia, Syria, the homeland of Jesus Christ, and North Africa, although crusades to North Africa will be less significant. We do have the calling of crusades primarily to recapture the homeland of Jesus Christ and to relieve the pressure on the Byzantine Empire. Using the influence of Christianity, the unifying force of Christianity, Europe is going to enter into 200 years of war with external opponents. We'll talk more about that in a future subunit. Lots on the Crusades coming up. But I did want to touch on that, as the power of the Christian church in Europe is eventually going to lead to 200 years of war. I'll see you next time. So long.